Hello, and welcome to this podcast about being at the airport. In this series, I will describe my travel experience step by step, focusing on the most common situations a person may face when flying. My goal is to explain everything in a clear and simple way so that anyone can follow and use the same language in real life. Airports are busy places with many processes happening at the same time. There are check-in counters, security checks, passport control, boarding gates, and flight announcements. For someone who does not travel often, this environment can feel confusing at first. However, once you understand the basic steps, the whole process becomes much more predictable and manageable. In this podcast, I will speak from my perspective as a traveler. I will not use complicated expressions or advanced vocabulary. Instead, I will focus on short, practical phrases that are commonly used at airports. These phrases are enough to communicate with airport staff, ask for help, and understand instructions. When traveling, I often need to communicate in simple and direct ways. For example, I may need to ask where to check in, confirm my gate number, or find out the boarding time. I may also need to provide basic information, such as my destination, passport, or baggage details. Typical phrases include, I have a flight to London. Where is the check-in desk? Can you help me, please? I'm looking for gate 12. Is this the correct line for security? Understanding signs and announcements is also very important. Airports use screens to display flight numbers, departure times, and gate information. Listening carefully to announcements helps avoid missing important updates, such as gate changes or delays. In this podcast, I will go through each stage of the airport experience in order. I will start with arriving at the airport and checking in, then move through security, passport control, finding the gate, boarding the plane, and finally arriving at the destination. The purpose is to make the process clear and familiar. Even if you only use basic English, you can still handle airport situations successfully by staying calm, polite, and focused. Now I arrive at the airport and make my way to the check-in area. I follow the signs inside the terminal and look for the airline counter that matches my flight. Airports usually have clear directions, so I simply read the boards and go in the right direction. Before approaching the counter, I prepare my documents. I have my passport and my ticket or booking confirmation ready. These are required to check in for a flight. When it is my turn, I step forward and speak politely to the staff. I begin with a simple greeting and then explain my purpose. I present my passport and booking details so the staff can find my reservation in the system. They check my flight information and confirm my destination. Next, I answer a few basic questions about my trip. I confirm where I am flying and whether I have any baggage to check in. If I have luggage, I place my suitcase on the scale so it can be weighed. This is important because airlines have limits for checked baggage. After the baggage is checked, the staff processes my boarding pass. This document contains key information such as my gate number, boarding time, and seat number. I carefully review the boarding pass to make sure all the details are correct. At the end of check-in, I receive my boarding pass and keep it together with my passport. These documents will be needed for the next steps, including security and boarding. I also make sure to ask questions if something is unclear. For example, I may confirm my gate or ask where to go next inside the airport. Clear and simple communication helps avoid confusion. After completing check-in, I am ready to proceed to the security area and continue my journey. Now I proceed to the security check area after completing check-in. I follow the signs that clearly indicate the direction to security control and join a line with other passengers. This step is required before entering the departure area, and it is one of the most important parts of the airport process. I stay calm and organized so everything goes smoothly. Before reaching the security scanner, I prepare all my belongings in advance. I take out my passport and boarding pass so they're easy to present if needed. I also remove items from my pockets, such as keys, coins, or small electronics. Then I place my bag, jacket, and personal items into the trays provided by the airport. Laptops and larger electronic devices are usually placed in a separate tray, and liquids must be placed in a small transparent bag according to airport rules. It is important to follow the instructions displayed on signs and given by the security staff. These instructions are usually simple and direct. I listen carefully and act accordingly. If I am unsure about something, I observe what other passengers are doing or ask for clarification. When it is my turn, I approach the scanner. I place my tray on the conveyor belt and then walk through the metal detector or body scanner. I stand still and follow any instructions given by the security officers. If the scanner detects something, I may be asked to step aside for additional screening. This is a normal procedure, and it does not mean there is a problem. During this process, the staff may ask to inspect my bag or perform a manual check. I remain cooperative and allow them to complete their work. I answer any simple questions clearly if needed and stay patient throughout the inspection. Security checks are routine and are done to ensure the safety of all passengers. After completing the scan and any additional checks, I collect my belongings from the trays. I carefully check that I have everything with me, including my passport, boarding pass, phone, wallet, and other personal items. It is easy to forget something in this busy environment, so I always double check before leaving the area. Once I have all my items, I move on from the security checkpoint into the departure area. At this stage, I am one step closer to my gate and my flight. I can now proceed to passport control if required, or directly to the gate depending on my destination. Now I move on to passport control. This step is required for international flights, where my documents are checked before I enter the departure area. I follow the signs that lead to passport control and join the queue. Before reaching the officer, I make sure I have my passport and boarding pass ready. These documents must be presented for verification. I stand in line and wait for my turn, staying calm and patient. When it is my turn, I approach the passport control desk. I hand over my passport and boarding pass for inspection. The officer checks my documents and verifies my identity in the system. This process is usually quick if all the information is correct. During passport control, the officer may ask a few simple questions about my trip. These questions are straightforward and help confirm the purpose of travel. I answer clearly and honestly. Typical questions include the reason for my visit, the length of my stay, or my destination. I respond using short and direct answers. For example, I explain that I am traveling for tourism, business, or to visit someone. I may also confirm how long I plan to stay and where I will be staying. Clear and confident answers are usually enough. After checking my documents and hearing my answers, the officer returns my passport and allows me to proceed. At this point, passport control is complete and I can continue toward the departure gates. It is important to stay polite, follow instructions, and keep my documents organized throughout this process. Having everything ready helps make the experience smooth and efficient. Now I move further inside the airport after completing passport control. The next important step is to find my departure gate. This is where I will board my flight, so I need to make sure I go to the correct place and arrive on time. First, I'll look at the information screens located throughout the airport. These screens display flight numbers, destinations, departure times, and gate numbers. I locate my flight by checking the flight number and destination that match my ticket. Once I find my flight on the screen, I note the gate number assigned to it. After identifying my gate, I follow the signs that lead to that area. Airports are usually well organized, with clear directions such as gates A, C, or specific gate numbers like gate 15. I walk in the direction indicated and occasionally check the signs again to make sure I'm on the right path. If the airport is large or confusing, I may ask for help. In such cases, I can approach airport staff or information desks and ask for directions in a simple and polite way. For example, I might ask where a specific gate is located or confirm that I am going in the correct direction. Clear communication helps avoid mistakes. When I arrive near the gate area, I double-check the information displayed on screens or signs. I confirm that the gate number matches my boarding pass and that the destination is correct. This is important because gate numbers can sometimes change, so I stay attentive to updates. At the gate, I also pay attention to announcements and electronic displays. These may provide information about boarding time, group numbers, or any delays. It is important to stay near the gate so I do not miss important updates. While waiting, I keep my boarding pass and passport easily accessible. I may sit nearby or stay in the designated waiting area. I also use this time to relax, check my belongings, and prepare for boarding. If I have any doubts, I can ask questions such as whether boarding has started or if there are any changes to the flight. Staying informed helps me avoid confusion and ensures a smooth boarding process. At this stage, I am fully prepared at the correct gate and ready to board when my flight is called. Now I am at the correct departure gate and waiting for boarding to begin. At this stage, it is important to stay close to the gate area and pay attention to announcements and information screens. Airports usually provide updates about boarding time, delays, or group boarding instructions. I sit or stand in the waiting area while keeping my boarding pass and passport within easy reach. These documents are needed when boarding starts, so I make sure they're not packed away in my luggage. I also keep an eye on the gate screen to confirm that there are no last-minute changes. During the waiting time, I listen carefully to announcements made by airport staff. These announcements may include instructions such as which passengers should board first, boarding group numbers, or any updates about the flight. It is important to stay attentive so I do not miss my turn. If I am unsure about anything, I can approach the gate staff and ask simple questions. For example, I may ask whether boarding has started or confirm my boarding group. Clear and polite communication helps avoid confusion and ensures I am ready when my group is called. While waiting, I also use this time to prepare for boarding. I organize my belongings, check that my documents are ready, and make sure I have everything I need for the flight. This includes items like my phone, wallet, passport, and boarding pass. When boarding begins, passengers are usually called by groups or rows. I wait until my group is announced before joining the line. It is important to follow the instructions and not rush ahead of others. At this stage, patience and awareness are key. By staying near the gate, listening to announcements, and being ready with my documents, I can board the plane smoothly without any issues. Now boarding begins, and I prepare to enter the plane. I listen carefully to the announcements and follow the instructions about which group or row is allowed to board first. Boarding is usually organized in stages, so I wait until my group is called before joining the line. This helps keep the process orderly and avoids unnecessary delays. When my group is called, I approach the gate with my boarding pass and passport ready. I stand in line and move forward when it is my turn. At the gate, the staff checks my documents and scans my boarding pass. I present everything clearly and wait for confirmation before proceeding. Once my ticket is accepted, I am allowed to board the aircraft. After passing through the gate, I'll walk along the boarding bridge or directly onto the plane, depending on the airport and aircraft type. As I enter the plane, I am greeted by the flight attendants. I continue moving inside the cabin and begin looking for my seat, which is indicated on my boarding pass. I carefully check my seat number and row. For example, my seat may be located in row 12, seat A. I walk through the aisle, looking at the numbers above the seats until I find the correct row. If I have any difficulty locating my seat, I can ask a flight attendant for assistance. They're always available to help passengers find their seats or answer questions. Once I find my seat, I place my carry-on luggage in the overhead compartment or under the seat in front of me, following airline guidelines. I make sure not to block the aisle and to store my belongings properly. After that, I sit down in my seat and prepare for the next steps. I fasten my seat belt and make sure I am seated comfortably. I also take a moment to check that I have all my essential items with me, such as my passport, boarding pass, phone, and any personal belongings I may need during the flight. It is important to be organized before takeoff. Shortly after boarding is complete, the flight attendants begin giving safety instructions. These instructions may include how to use the seat belt, where the emergency exits are located, and what to do in case of an emergency. I listen carefully and follow along, even if I have heard these instructions before, as they are important for safety. During this time, I also make sure my electronic devices are set according to the flight rules. I follow any instructions regarding airplane mode or device usage. Everything is done calmly and in accordance with the crew's guidance. At this stage, I am fully seated, prepared, and ready for departure. The cabin doors will close soon, and the plane will begin taxiing toward the runway. I remain seated, attentive, and ready for takeoff. Now the boarding process is complete, and the plane is ready to depart. The cabin crew checks that all passengers are seated, seat belts are fastened, and luggage is properly stored. I make sure my seat belt is securely fastened and my seat is in the correct position as instructed. The plane begins to move slowly away from a gate. This is called taxiing. During this time, I remain seated and follow any announcement from the flight crew. The crew may remind passengers to keep their seat belts fastened and to ensure that all personal items are safely stored. As the plane approaches the runway, it aligns for takeoff. The engines become louder and the plane gains speed. I stay calm and keep my seatbelt fastened. Takeoff is a normal and routine part of the flight, and the crew is trained to manage it safely. During takeoff, the plane accelerates and lifts into the air. I may feel pressure in my ears or a slight change in movement as the plane climbs. This is normal. To stay comfortable, I remain relaxed, breathe normally, and keep my seatbelt on. Once the plane is in the air and reaches cruising altitude, the seatbelt sign may be turned off. At this point, I can adjust my seat slightly and relax. However, I still follow any instructions from the crew and remain attentive to announcements. After takeoff, the flight attendants begin their service. They may offer drinks, snacks, or other services depending on the airline and flight duration. I can request items politely using simple phrases if needed. This is also a time when passengers can settle in and prepare for the rest of the journey. The initial phase of the flight is about stability and comfort. I stay seated, keep my belongings organized, and enjoy the flight as it continues toward the destination. I also take this time to rest, read, or watch entertainment if available. In this stage, everything should feel calm and controlled. The aircraft is now cruising and the journey is underway. I remain aware of announcements and follow the cruise guidance at all times. Now the plane is cruising at a steady altitude, and the flight has entered its main phase. At this point, the environment inside the cabin becomes more relaxed and stable. I remain seated with my seatbelt fastened when required, especially if the seatbelt sign is still on or if there is any turbulence. During the mid-flight period, I have the opportunity to relax and make myself comfortable. I may adjust my seat slightly if allowed, use a travel pillow, or simply sit back and rest. This is the longest part of the flight, so managing comfort is important. Flight attendants continue their service during this time. Depending on the airline and flight duration, they may offer meals, snacks, or beverages. I can politely request food or drinks when they come by, or follow the instructions for ordering if the service is organized differently. I remain courteous and clear when communicating my requests. In addition to eating or drinking, I can use this time to stay entertained. Many planes offer in-flight entertainment systems with movies, music, or games. If such systems are not available, I may use my personal devices to read, watch downloaded content, or listen to music. I make sure my device is in airplane mode as required by airline regulations. It is also important to stay hydrated during the flight. Airplane cabins can be dry, so I drink water regularly if available. This helps maintain comfort throughout the journey. I also move slightly in my seat from time to time to avoid stiffness, especially on longer flights. If I need assistance at any point, I can press the call button to request help from the flight attendants. They are available to answer questions, provide items, or assist with any concerns. I use this option politely and only when necessary. Occasionally, the plane may experience turbulence. In such cases, I remain calm and keep my seatbelt fastened. Turbulence is a normal part of flying and is managed by the flight crew. I follow any announcements and instructions given during these moments. I also take this time to prepare for the next stage of the journey. I may review my arrival details, check documents, or organize my belongings so that everything is ready for landing. Being prepared in advance makes the arrival process smoother. Overall, the mid-flight experience is a period of calm travel where I can rest, stay comfortable, and follow the cruise guidance. I remain aware of my surroundings while enjoying the journey toward my destination. Now the flight is approaching its final stage. The crew makes announcements to inform passengers that we are preparing for landing. I pay attention to these instructions and make sure my seatbelt is securely fastened. I also return my seat to the upright position and ensure that my tray table is stowed away. As the plane begins its descent, I may feel changes in pressure similar to takeoff. This is normal, and I stay calm while the aircraft gradually lowers its altitude. The flight attendants may remind passengers to remain seated and follow all safety instructions during this phase. During descent, I make sure that all my belongings are properly packed and easily accessible. I check that I have my passport, boarding pass, phone, wallet, and any other essential items. It is important not to leave anything behind in the seat pocket or overhead compartment. The plane continues its approach toward the runway and then lands smoothly. After landing, the aircraft slows down and taxis toward the arrival gate. I remain seated with my seatbelt fastened until the plane comes to a complete stop and the crew gives permission to disembark. Once the plane is parked, the seatbelt sign is turned off and passengers are instructed to leave the aircraft in an orderly manner. I wait for my turn, gather my carry-on luggage from the overhead compartment, and prepare to exit the plane. I move calmly with the flow of passengers toward the exit. After leaving the aircraft, I follow the signs to baggage claim or passport control, depending on the type of flight. If I have checked luggage, I proceed to the designated area to collect it. I check the information screens to find the correct carousel for my flight. At baggage claim, I wait for my luggage to appear and collect it carefully. I verify that the bag belongs to me before leaving the area. If I do not have checked baggage, I can proceed directly to the exit or customs area if required. Finally, I exit the airport and complete my journey. At this point, the entire travel process from check-in to landing is finished. I have successfully navigated the airport and completed my flight. This concludes the full sequence of traveling through the airport and arriving at the destination.
Tell me why you want to learn English. The 3 most interesting comments will get 10 English lessons absolutely free.